There's a certain kind of person who does something most people would find strange. They keep a text message saved from someone who hurt them, not to remember the pain, but because deleting it feels like admitting it's truly over. They still replay a conversation from 3 years ago, not because they're weak, not because they're dramatic, but because somewhere deep inside, their mind has decided this thing is not finished yet. And here's what nobody tells you about people who can't let go. It is not about the person, the job, or the memory they're holding on to. It is about what that thing represents in their nervous system. It is about an unfinished loop the brain refuses to close. Psychology has a name for this, and when you understand what's really happening inside the mind of someone who can't let go, you won't see them as stuck anymore. You'll see them as someone in the middle of an invisible battle, one that most people never notice and almost no one wins alone. Today, we are going to go deep into the psychology of people who can't let go, where it comes from, what it does to the brain, and the three things that finally set them free. In the 1920s, a Bluma Zeigarnik psychologist made a strange observation. Waiters at a restaurant could remember every detail of an order that hadn't been paid yet, but the moment the bill was settled, the memory vanished almost instantly. Her research gave us what is now called the Zeigarnik effect, the brain's natural tendency to hold on to unfinished tasks, unresolved situations, and incomplete emotional loops. For most people, this works in the background quietly. But for people who can't let go, this system is running at maximum volume all the time. A relationship ended without explanation. The brain doesn't file it as done. It stores it as pending. A friendship that faded without a real goodbye, also pending. A moment where someone embarrassed them in front of others and no one ever acknowledged it. Pending, pending, pending. And here's the cruel part. The brain doesn't just store these files quietly. It revisits them, it rehearses them, it replays them at 2 a.m. when there is nothing else to distract it. This isn't a character flaw, this is neuroscience. Now, why are some people's Zeigarnik systems louder than others? This is where we need to go back further, much further. Developmental psychologist John Bowlby studied what happens to children who experience unpredictable attachment, parents who were sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes present, sometimes gone. He found something remarkable. Those children didn't detach, they didn't become indifferent, they became hypervigilant. Their nervous system learned that love is unstable, and the only way to survive is to hold on tighter. Biologically, here's what happens. When a bond is threatened, the brain releases cortisol, the same stress hormone that fires during physical danger. The amygdala lights up. The body enters a state of low-grade emergency. And here's the thing that most people don't understand. Letting go doesn't feel like freedom to this nervous system. Letting go feels like a threat to survival. So when someone with this wiring is told, just move on, it's like telling someone standing on the edge of a cliff to simply relax. Their body is screaming, hold on, don't let go, this is how you stay safe. They're not being dramatic. Their nervous system is genuinely doing its job, just with outdated instructions. There's a specific psychological process at work here, and it has a name: rumination. Psychology defines rumination as the tendency to repetitively and passively focus on one's distress, going over the same thought, the same moment, the same person without moving towards a resolution. Studies from Yale University showed that people who ruminate have significantly higher activity in the default mode network, the same brain system we discussed in people who are overly aware. But here's what makes rumination especially painful for people who can't let go. They're not thinking about the past because they enjoy it. They're thinking about the past because part of their brain genuinely believes that if they analyze it enough times, they will finally find the answer that makes the pain make sense. If I can just understand why they left, maybe I can accept it. If I can figure out what I did wrong, maybe the guilt will go away.
If I replay that moment one more time, maybe I'll finally feel at peace with it. But the answer never comes, because some things in life don't have the kind of closure the brain is looking for, and the searching itself keeps the wound open. When the memory becomes part of who they are. Here's the sign that takes the longest to see, because it goes the deepest. For people who have been holding on for a very long time, there comes a point where the thing they're holding, the relationship, the loss, the failure, doesn't just live in their memory, it becomes part of their identity. Psychology calls this identity fusion. The boundary between the self and the object of loss starts to dissolve. They don't just miss the person, they define themselves as someone who loved that person. They don't just regret the failure, they have quietly built an entire story of who they are around the fact that they failed. And this is why letting go feels like dying. Not metaphorically, neurologically. Research by Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA showed that social rejection and physical pain activate the same regions of the brain, particularly the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. Losing someone who is woven into your identity doesn't just hurt emotionally, it registers in the brain as the same experience as losing a limb. So when someone asks, "Why can't you just move on?" the honest answer, hidden inside the nervous system, is because a part of me is in there and I don't know who I am without it. Letting go before they're ready. There's one final layer, and it's perhaps the most misunderstood. Some people who can't let go aren't holding on to the past. They're grieving the future they thought they were going to have. Clinical psychologist Mary Frances O'Connor calls this future self-grief, the pain of losing not just what was, but the entire version of life that was supposed to happen. They're not crying about the relationship. They're crying about the apartment they were going to live in, the trips they were going to take, the person they were going to become alongside someone else. They lost a whole alternate reality, and nobody grieved it with them. So they carry it alone, in silence, replaying it, refusing to archive it, because archiving it means officially accepting it never comes true. This is not weakness. This is one of the deepest forms of human love. Loving something so completely that even its absence leaves a full-sized shadow. So what can people who can't let go actually do? The answer is not, and I want to be very clear about this, the answer is not to force yourself to stop caring. That approach doesn't work. You can't bully the nervous system into releasing something it believes is critical to your survival. The path forward has 3 steps, and each one is about working with the brain, not against it. Step 1. Give the loop an ending. The Zeigarnik effect keeps unfinished things alive, so the first step is to create a deliberate ending, even if the real world never gave you one. This is what therapists call a closure ritual. It doesn't require the other person, it doesn't require an explanation. It requires you to tell the story, in writing, in a voice note, in a letter you never send, all the way to a real ending. Not a hopeful ending, a true one. This happened. It hurt me. I am no longer waiting for it to become something different. The moment you give the loop a final sentence, the brain starts to file it differently, not as pending, as complete. It won't erase the pain, but it will stop the replay. Step 2. Separate the memory from the identity. This is the step that takes the most courage. You don't have to delete who you were in that chapter. You don't have to pretend it didn't shape you, but you have to practice saying and believing a single sentence. That was something that happened to me. It is not who I am. In cognitive behavioral therapy, this is called cognitive diffusion, creating psychological distance between yourself and the thought, between your identity and the story. You are someone who loved deeply. You still are. You are someone who lost something important. That's true. But you are not the loss itself. You are the person who survived it. And that is a completely different story, one that still has unwritten pages. Step 3. Grieve the future, not just the past. This is the one most people skip, and it's the reason they stay stuck. Before you can fully let go, you need to grieve the future you lost, not just the relationship, not just the person, the version of life that disappeared when they did. Sit with it, name it, say out loud, I am grieving the life I thought I was going to have. Because here's what happens when you do. Your brain stops searching for it. When something is named, the prefrontal cortex, the rational, regulating part of your brain, begins to process it. The amygdala calms down. The emergency signal quiets. You don't stop loving the future you imagined. You just stop living there. And when you stop living there, something remarkable happens. You start to notice the life that's actually in front of you. The people who are still here. The moments that are still happening. The version of yourself that has been patiently waiting on the other side of the grief. People who can't let go are not broken. They're people who loved something fully enough that the loss left a real mark. They are people whose nervous systems are so loyal, so wired for attachment, that even the brain fights against goodbye. If you see yourself somewhere in what we talked about today, in the replayed conversations, the unarchived memories, the grief for the life that didn't happen, I want you to hear this. You are not weak for holding on. You are not damaged for struggling to release. You are human in the most complete, most compassionate sense of that word. The goal was never to stop feeling. The goal is to feel it fully, and then slowly to set it down. Not because it didn't matter, because you do. If this video felt like something you needed today, if you recognized yourself or someone you love in any part of this, please leave a comment below. Tell me, which sign hit you the hardest? The zygonic loop? The identity fusion? The grief for the future? I read every single one. And if you know someone who is quietly carrying something they can't put down, share this video with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can give someone isn't advice. It's simply the feeling that they're not alone. If you want to understand yourself and the people around you at a deeper level, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we decode the hidden psychology behind the things we feel but rarely have words for. I'll see you in the next one.